The sea speaks in whispers, soft and endless, like secrets carried across centuries of waves. A voice calls from beyond the horizon, where storms are born and lightning crowns the restless sky. Legends tell of a throne, not made of stone or gold, but carved from eternal flame within the sea itself. They say Poseidon breathed fire into the heart of water, and there the storm-eternal throne was formed. No sailor has seen it and returned, yet the ocean keeps its promise in murmurs and sudden silences. Tonight, you and I will follow the tide, tracing myths and echoes that drift in salt and wind. Close your eyes, hear the rhythm of the waves, and let the story carry you deeper into its embrace. A forgotten map, edges burned, waits in a lighthouse where no lantern has shone for years. Its lines speak of storms as guardians, stars as companions, and secrets hidden beneath endless tides. This journey is not of conquest, nor of crowns, but of listening, of daring to step where silence sings. Stay with me, for the sea remembers, and its voice grows louder when the storm begins to rise. Welcome, traveler, to the storm-eternal throne, flame of Poseidon. The sea speaks first in murmurs, faint and scattered, like threads of memory floating across the night air. Waves rise and fall as if breathing, carrying whispers too fragile to be held by human hands. Each whisper bends into another, forming a tapestry of sound that feels older than the world itself. Seafarers once said that the ocean has a memory, and every ripple carries the echo of forgotten lives. Listen closely now, for the tide is heavy with a secret it has kept hidden beneath its restless surface. The secret is not written in books, nor etched in stone, but sung by the waves when no one listens. Tonight, as the stars watch in silence, the sea opens its heart with a song only few dare to hear. It is not a song of sorrow nor joy, but of balance, reminding all who listen of the throne it protects. The throne is no crown for kings, no jewel for empires, but a flame born from Poseidon's breath. It lives where storms are born, where lightning folds into water, where fire and sea embrace as one. The whispers grow louder, shaping words that travel from crest to crest, reaching the ears of dreamers. They speak of a throne eternal, not bound by mortal time, but by tides that flow without beginning. No captain has claimed it, no voyager has held it, for it is not to be owned, but to be understood. The sea does not yield to force nor to pride, but only to those who walk with patience and humility. Legends drift from shore to shore, carried in nets, told in lantern light, shared where ships gather. Fishermen tell their children of the throne, describing it as a place where water dances with fire. Sailors whisper of a light glowing deep beneath waves, guiding their ships when storms rise high. Some laugh at the stories, calling them myths, yet they still glance to the horizon with wondering eyes. For in every storm, there is a moment when the sky tears open and something luminous appears. A flare of blue fire across the horizon, fleeting and quiet, gone before a man can cry its name. Those who saw it say the fire is not destruction, but a lantern of hope for those who are lost. They say Poseidon shaped it not as a weapon, but as a reminder that even chaos can hold beauty. And so the whispers keep calling, weaving their way into the minds of those who dare to dream. Some hear them at night, as the sea brushes the shore, a lullaby too ancient to resist. Others feel it when storms arrive, when the first drops strike the deck, as if voices ride the rain. But the throne cannot be reached by accident, nor stumbled upon by chance or greed. The throne reveals itself only when the heart is ready to see, when the soul is open to the sea. Close your eyes now. Let the whispers guide you and step where waves have carried countless souls. We begin not with maps or compasses, but with trust in the rhythm of the ocean's endless breath. Hear how the waves crash, not in anger, but in guidance, urging you forward into the unknown. The horizon trembles with mystery, as though the night sky itself bends closer to listen. Stars scatter their light upon the water, drawing invisible paths that shimmer and vanish. Follow them not with sight, but with spirit. For the sea's song is heard within, not without. The throne waits, not in distant lands, but where silence deepens, where courage outweighs fear. You are not alone in this voyage, for the whispers follow, faithful as the tide that never rests. Every ripple carries you nearer, every breeze folds you deeper into the story the ocean writes. This is the beginning, traveler, of a path written not in ink, but in salt, fire, and storm. Welcome to the first whisper of the sea, where legends awaken and the eternal throne awaits. The lighthouse stood on the edge of the world, where cliffs crumbled into foam and winds howled through the night. Its lantern had not shone for decades, yet the tower remained, tall and silent, like a sentinel of memory. Inside, dust-covered stone floors, and cobwebs stretched like veils across the wooden beams that once knew firelight. The air smelled of salt and thyme, a mixture of ocean breath and the weight of forgotten years. It was here, among silence and shadow, that the map waited, folded and burned at its fragile edges. No one remembered who left it, or why it rested in a library that had no visitors left to dream. Books crumbled in their sleep, their ink fading, but the map resisted, glowing faintly beneath pale moonlight. It was not ink alone that shaped its lines, but symbols that shimmered like water under shifting starlight. The parchment told of storms, not as enemies, but as guardians standing before hidden wonders of the sea. It marked constellations, guiding lights across the night sky, pointing the way through, chaos and calm alike. Where land ended, the map curved into waves drawn in silver, as if the sea itself had signed its name. And there, at the heart of spirals and stars, a throne was sketched, crowned by fire that did not fade. Legends called it the flame of Poseidon, though the map spoke without words, only symbols alive with silence. Travelers who found it would often dismiss it, calling it myth, yet their dreams grew heavy afterward. For at night they would hear waves whispering closer, as if the sea itself sought their listening hearts. The map was not a guide for eyes alone, but a test, demanding trust in the unknown beyond shore. Those who held it too tightly found it blank, the lines fading, the symbols dissolving like mist in wind. But those who traced it gently, listening instead of searching, saw storms open into pathways of light. The lighthouse itself seemed to breathe when the map was touched, its stones alive with faint tremors. Some swore they heard footsteps echo on the stairs, though no one lived there and no lantern burned. Others claimed a voice rose within the tower, a low hum that joined the waves outside in harmony. The voice carried no words, only tones, reminding wanderers that the ocean speaks in music, not commands. And always the map glowed brighter when storms gathered, as if awakened by thunder and rain. It was in this forgotten tower that the journey began, not with sails unfurled, but with whispers of paper. The map was both riddle and promise, a reminder that the throne was not a destination, but a calling. Every line invited not conquest, but surrender, a willingness to trust the currents of fate and sea. No compass could match its guidance, for the map aligned not with iron, but with starlight and heart. The sea had placed its secret here, knowing few would search among ruins for truths greater than gold. It waited not for kings or armies, but for those who dared to listen when silence was deepest. For in the stillness of forgotten halls, the ocean's memory could be heard, steady as the tide outside. Those who found the map knew their lives would change, though they could not yet name how or why. They left the lighthouse carrying more than parchment. They carried a promise woven into ink and flame. The promise that somewhere beyond the horizon, storms concealed not ruin, but revelation. And at the heart of those storms, the eternal throne awaited, burning with Poseidon's living fire. So begins the journey, with a forgotten map, a lighthouse, and a whisper that will not let go. The voyage began beneath a sky painted in silver, where stars scattered like lanterns over the dark sea. The ship groaned as ropes tightened, sails unfurled, and the harbor slowly drifted into memory. Each plank of wood carried the weight of countless journeys, now ready to bear a story yet untold. The crew moved with quiet purpose, their hands steady, though their eyes betrayed a hunger for mystery. They had heard the whispers of the throne, the fire of Poseidon, and now they sailed toward its secret. The map lay secured in the captain's quarters, glowing faintly, pulsing with light as if alive. No compass aligned with its marks, no chart explained its spirals, yet the crew trusted its silent call. The sea stretched endless ahead, black and glistening, a mirror for the heavens that shimmered above. Waves rose gently, as though guiding rather than resisting, carrying the vessel into deeper waters. The wind was kind at first, brushing cheeks with salt, filling sails with breath that urged them onward. Far from land, the world seemed endless, a circle of water and sky where all directions blurred. In the stillness, each sound became sacred, the creak of timber, the slap of waves, the song of ropes. The ocean seemed alive, as if listening to their hearts, testing whether fear or wonder ruled within. One sailor whispered of seeing a light below the surface, faint blue, drifting like fire in the deep. Others dismissed it, but their gazes lingered on the dark waves, waiting for the shimmer to return. The captain said little, but his eyes burned with resolve. A man guided more by faith than reason. He believed the throne was not myth, but memory. A truth waiting for those who dared enough to seek. Nights grew longer, and the stars seemed to shift, drawing patterns that echoed the map's strange design. Constellations bent in ways unseen before, as if the heavens themselves reshaped to guide the voyage. The crew felt it too, a sense of being watched, not with malice, but with the weight of ancient eyes. Sometimes they heard voices in the wind, low hums woven with the crash of waves on the bow. Not threatening, but guiding, like lullabies sung in a language too old to understand. Days passed, measured not by clocks, but by the rhythm of tides and the whispers in their dreams. They spoke less, listened more, for the ocean carried secrets in every ripple, every gust of air. Birds disappeared, land vanished, and still the map pulsed brighter, urging them further into the unknown. Then came a night when the sea grew still, a silence so vast it felt as if time itself paused. The sails hung heavy, the wind ceased, and the stars glowed brighter than ever before. In that silence, the crew gathered at the bow, listening to something only the heart could hear. The ocean whispered again, but this time louder, clearer, a sound that filled the marrow of their bones. It spoke of trust, of surrender, of walking forward into the storm that would soon rise. No one doubted then, for the silence itself was a promise, a threshold before the path revealed. The voyage had truly begun, not in the harbor, but in the moment they listened instead of spoke. Every eye turned to the horizon, where a faint glow shimmered, blue as flame, waiting in the dark. The throne was far, storms yet to come, but the sea had accepted them, and the journey was alive. And so the ship pressed onward, carrying not only men, but hope, faith, and the whisper of Poseidon's fire. The first gift of the storm arrived not in fury, but in silence. A pause so deep it hushed every soul aboard. The sea darkened, its surface shifting with shadows that moved like breath beneath the vessel's keel. Above, the sky thickened with clouds that twisted, folding into one another as if weaving a great curtain. The wind that once guided them stilled, replaced by a heavy stillness, as though the world awaited a command. Then, in the distance, a low rumble rolled across the horizon, gentle yet powerful, like a heartbeat of the deep. Lightning split the sky, not in rage but in beauty, streaks of silver curling like rivers across the heavens. Instead of fear, the crew felt awe, their eyes fixed on the artistry of the storm rising with quiet grace. Rain began to fall, not harsh, but in drops that glowed faintly, reflecting blue fire as they touched the deck. Each drop carried light, as if the storm itself painted the ship in a veil of luminous whispers. The captain raised his head and smiled, whispering that Poseidon had seen their courage and sent a sign. The storm did not strike. It opened, shaping a corridor in the clouds, a path framed in rolling thunder. Through the breach, a glow shimmered on the sea, blue and alive, pulsing as though calling them forward. The crew moved as one, sails adjusting, ropes drawn, their fear replaced with reverence for what lay ahead. No chart marked this course, no star explained it. Yet every heart aboard knew the moment was true. The ship glided into the storm's passage, embraced by walls of lightning that danced but never struck. Thunder sang above them, each sound resonant, not chaotic but ordered, like drums of an ancient hymn. The sailors whispered that they felt the sea's approval, as though chosen to walk where few had gone. One man reached out his hand, catching a drop of glowing rain that shimmered like fire before fading. He swore it burned not with pain, but with warmth, a gift of reassurance from the ocean's hand. The map pulsed brighter below deck, its lines glowing in rhythm with the storm's flashing light. It was as if parchment and storm were bound, each guiding the other, leading them deeper into mystery. The sailors no longer questioned whether the throne was real. The storm itself had answered. They sailed forward, hearts steady, their ship surrounded by walls of light and voices hidden in thunder. The voices carried no words, only tones that stirred memory, like songs remembered from distant dreams. Some said they heard their mother's lullabies, others the call of waves from childhood shores. Each soul felt seen, not as a sailor or wanderer, but as a child of the sea, welcomed home. The path stretched long, bordered by lightning, yet no harm touched them, only guidance and awe. Even fear bowed before the majesty of what rose. Around them, a storm not of wrath, but of wonder. The captain whispered again, calling it the first gift, proof that the ocean rewarded trust, not conquest. For those who listened, the storm was no enemy, but a gate opening toward the throne's secret flame. And so the ship sailed deeper, guided by thunder, lifted by waves that carried them without resistance. The rain ceased, but the glow remained, streaks of fire curling across the water like veins of light. Each sailor knew they would never see the sea the same again, for they had been touched by its secret. And in their hearts, the whisper grew stronger. The throne awaited, beyond storms, beyond fear, beyond time. The storm's corridor faded behind them, and before the ship rose an island wrapped in shimmering light. It appeared suddenly, as though birthed from mist, its sands glowing pale under the embrace of the moon. The crew whispered that no chart marked it. No sailor had spoken of it, yet it felt ancient and familiar. As they drew closer, the air filled with sound, not of wind or tide, but of voices echoing in harmony. The island was alive with music, though no instrument played, only shells scattered across the shore. Each shell sang when touched by waves, releasing tones that rose and fell like the breath of the sea. Stepping ashore, the sailors felt the vibrations in their bones, as if the earth itself whispered beneath. The captain knelt, lifting one shell, and the sound deepened, layering into a chord that filled the air. It was not random, but purposeful, as though each shell held a piece of a forgotten language. The men gathered, listening, slowly realizing that the island was not singing for them, but to them. The voices in the shells spoke of courage, not as strength, but as the willingness to face silence. They spoke of truth, not as knowledge, but as listening without shaping the words into desire. Each shell echoed a memory of the sea, laughter of children on shores, whispers of lovers by tides. The sailors felt humbled, realizing the ocean held every story, and the island carried them as song. One man pressed a shell to his ear and heard his mother's voice calling him home for supper. Another heard the cry of gulls over a harbor long vanished, a place he had not seen in years. The island was a mirror, reflecting the deepest truths hidden within those who walked its sands. But the voices did not flatter, nor deceive. They revealed both fears and hopes, shadows and light. The captain held the glowing map to the shells, and suddenly their songs shifted, aligning together. A harmony rose, powerful and pure, pointing not with words, but with resonance toward the sea. It was as though the shells themselves had become a compass, their music guiding the journey ahead. The crew stood silent, tears in some eyes, as the harmony sank into their souls with gentle clarity. They understood then that the throne was not merely a place, but a path of listening and surrender. The island did not ask them to stay, nor did it hold them captive. It simply sang until they were ready. When the tide turned, the voices grew softer, fading into whispers, as if blessing their voyage onward. The sailors returned to the ship, each carrying a shell, not as treasure, but as reminder of truth. As the anchor lifted, the island seemed to fade, retreating into mist as though it had never been. But its music lingered in the air, woven into the rhythm of the waves that carried them forward. No storm followed, no wind opposed them, for the sea itself seemed gentler, pleased with their hearts. They spoke little that night, listening instead to the shells that hummed softly, guiding their dreams. Each man knew the path ahead would not be of charts or strength, but of trust in the sea's voice. The island of echoing shells had gifted them more than direction. It had given them memory and clarity. And as dawn touched the horizon, they sailed onward, the throne calling louder with every breath of tide. The 6th chapter of their voyage began with silence, the kind that comes when the sea forgets to breathe. The waters lay still as glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly it seemed the ship floated in two worlds. The crew whispered in awe, for such calmness was rare, and some feared it was a prelude to trial. Yet the captain stood tall, sensing not danger, but invitation, a summons from the heart of the deep. The glowing map flickered faintly, its light dimming as though waiting for the sea to reveal the path. The sailors lowered their voices, listening until they heard the faintest hum rising from beneath. It was steady, melodic, like the pluck of a harp string, vibrating through the timbers of the vessel. Leaning over the railing, they saw not darkness below, but patterns of light swirling in the depths. The seafloor glowed with spirals, luminous symbols that shifted like living constellations underwater. Each pattern pulsed in rhythm, and with every beat, the ship trembled as though aligned with a heart. The men realized the ocean was speaking again, not with storm or song, but with sacred geometry. The spirals expanded, weaving into vast circles, until the sea became a canvas painted with flame. Blue fire danced beneath them, not burning but illuminating, outlining a colossal gate of light. The gate was no structure of stone, but a living current shaped by waves and guarded by silence. The crew held their breath as the ship drifted closer, drawn not by wind, but by unseen hands. When they reached its edge, the glowing patterns rose, lifting from water into shimmering walls. The ship was encircled by arcs of light, each one bending and weaving like ribbons in the air. The sailors clutched their shells, which hummed now in harmony with the ocean's glowing design. The captain whispered that Poseidon's throne would not be found by force, but through surrender. At his words, the spirals shifted again, opening a corridor that stretched downward into the sea. It was not descent, but invitation, a pathway where water parted like glass, yet did not collapse. The sailors felt no fear, only wonder, as their ship began to slide gently into the glowing abyss. The air grew denser, rich with salt and light, while the sea embraced them like a cradle. Fishes of radiant hue swam alongside, their scales glittering like shards of fallen stars. The deeper they went, the brighter it became, as though descending not into darkness, but into dawn. The crew marveled, for the ocean revealed itself not as grave, but as sanctuary filled with life. They passed forests of coral that swayed like dancers, each branch shimmering with hidden fire. Schools of creatures moved in unison, forming patterns that mirrored the glowing spirals of the gate. The sailors realized they were not intruders, but guests, welcomed into a realm few had ever seen. One man placed his hand to the water and felt warmth, as though touching the pulse of the sea. Another whispered that he could hear the corals sing, their voices soft as lullabies from the deep. The shells the sailors carried glowed brighter, their tones mingling with the ocean's ancient song. The ship sailed on, steady and unharmed, carried by currents that bent in perfect harmony. The captain closed his eyes and let the rhythm guide him, trusting the sea as he trusted breath. At last, the glowing corridor opened wider, revealing a cavern carved of pure light and tide. Its walls shimmered like crystal, and in its center a throne of flame flickered faintly, waiting. But the flame was not of destruction. It was calm, steady, alive with warmth that beckoned them near. The sailors knew this was not yet the throne itself, but its guardian, a sign they were worthy to seek. They bowed their heads, not in fear, but in reverence, for they had entered the ocean's heart. And as the light cradled their ship, a whisper rose in every soul, promising the journey was only beginning. The descent into the cavern of light marked a turning point, for the sailors felt both awe and trembling within. The walls shimmered like crystal veils, bending water into prisms that painted the ship in endless colors. Every breath seemed heavy yet alive, as if the sea itself entered their lungs and shared its essence. The glowing throne of flame burned softly at the heart, its light steady, its warmth reaching every soul. The sailors did not rush forward, for instinct told them this was no prize to seize, but a truth to receive. The captain lifted the glowing map, and the parchment dissolved into sparks, merging with the flame. The throne pulsed once, and the cavern echoed with sound, like 1,000 tides colliding in harmony. It was not noise, but language. A voice too vast for words, yet gentle enough to be understood. Each man heard it differently, as though the throne spoke to the secret chambers of their hearts. One heard forgiveness, another courage, another the soft call of hope, long thought extinguished. The shells they carried resonated, glowing until they cracked open, releasing streams of radiant song. These streams swirled into the flame, feeding it, and in return, the throne glowed brighter, welcoming. The sailors realized then that the shells were never treasures but offerings. Pieces of memory returned. The sea had held their past, and now it demanded they release it to move forward into truth. One by one, they lifted their shells and let them dissolve into the air, shimmering into the flame. With each offering, the cavern grew brighter, and the throne steadier, as though nourished by their surrender. When the last shell was given, silence fell, deep and profound, like the pause before creation itself. Then, from the throne, rose a figure not of flesh, but of current, light, and flame woven together. The figure was vast yet intimate, shifting between the form of wave, storm, and calm tide. It spoke without words, its presence a tide washing into every mind, clear as moonlight on water. You are not seekers of power, the voice carried, but guardians of the bond between man and sea. The sailors knelt, for they felt no command, only invitation, a chance to belong to something eternal. The captain lifted his gaze, asking silently if this was the throne of Poseidon they had come to find. The figure's flame flared, and the cavern shook with resonance, but the warmth never harmed them. This is but a reflection, the voice revealed, a gate of flame that proves your hearts can bear the truth. The sailors exchanged glances, understanding they had passed a test not of might, but of spirit. The figure extended its hand, and a stream of light touched the ship, marking it with a living sigil. The sigil glowed upon the mast, weaving into wood and sail, binding the vessel to the sea's will. You sail not alone, the voice whispered, but with the sea as your witness, your ally, your eternal home. Tears streamed down faces, though no one wept in sorrow, only in the fullness of wonder and belonging. The cavern trembled once more, not in collapse, but in parting, opening a new passage forward. The throne of flame dimmed, not extinguished, but resting, its purpose fulfilled for this moment in time. The sailors stood, stronger yet gentler, carrying within them the certainty that they had been chosen. The ship turned, carried by currents of light, lifting them from the cavern back toward the open sea. As they ascended, the glow upon their sails shimmered brighter, proof of the covenant they now bore. They emerged beneath a starlit sky, the air fresh, the horizon wide, as though the world had been reborn. And in their hearts, they knew the throne was still ahead, deeper in mystery, brighter in truth. But now, they carried its flame within them, a guiding star that no storm could ever extinguish. The Hasta, night after they left the cavern, was unlike any other, for the stars themselves seemed to draw nearer. Constellations shimmered brighter than before, their light weaving patterns across the sails like a blessing. The crew gathered on deck in silence, watching the heavens bend as though aligning with their course. The sigil on the mast pulsed softly, a steady glow that beat like a heart in rhythm with the sea. The sailors felt as though they were no longer voyagers, but chosen guardians of a story beyond time. The waves lapped gently, carrying whispers that rose and fell like verses of an eternal hymn. Then came a shimmer upon the horizon, a glow that curved upward as though the sea touched the sky. It grew slowly until the men realized it was not land, but a vast bridge of light over the waters. The bridge stretched endlessly, woven of currents and stars, reaching far beyond their sight. The captain knew this was no ordinary path, but the next trial, the crossing of eternal reflections. The ship glided closer, and when its bow touched the bridge, the sea below turned into a perfect mirror. Every sailor froze as they saw not just their faces, but their souls reflected in the glassy water. The reflections shifted, revealing not only who they were, but who they might have been. One man saw himself as a farmer, living quietly on land, never touched by sea or storm. Another saw himself as a wanderer who never returned home, drifting endlessly across unknown tides. The reflections were not cruel nor false, but reminders of paths untaken, choices unmade. The sailors trembled, for the visions stirred regret as well as wonder, hope as well as grief. The captain stood firm, reminding them that the throne did not seek perfection, only truth. He knelt by the railing, touching the mirrored sea, and his reflection smiled back with steady eyes. The bridge pulsed with light, acknowledging his courage, and the ship moved forward a little more. Each sailor followed, one by one, pressing palms to the water, facing the truths it revealed. Some wept softly, others laughed through tears, but all felt lighter, as though burdens had been released. The mirrored sea shimmered, and their reflections rose, stepping onto the bridge like living echoes. These echoes walked beside the ship, not shadows, but companions, guiding them across the path. The crew gasped, for the echoes were not ghosts, but parts of themselves once lost, now returned. The ship sailed onward, flanked by reflections, as though the sea had doubled their number. And with every league, the bond between sailor and echo grew, until fear was replaced with strength. The bridge stretched long, endless, but no one faltered, for they no longer felt alone in the journey. When dawn broke, the bridge of light began to dissolve, and the echoes merged back into their souls. The sailors felt whole, healed in ways they had not known they were broken, stronger than before. The captain whispered that Poseidon's throne demanded not might, but acceptance of one's true self. As the last shimmer of the bridge faded, the sea returned to normal, wide and open once again. But the crew carried with them a gift, invisible yet eternal, the knowledge that they were complete. And far ahead, where the horizon bent in fire and foam, the next mystery of the throne awaited. The sea was calm after the crossing, yet calmness itself carried weight, as though silence held its own secrets. The sailors rested, but their dreams were restless, filled with fragments of voices rising from deep waters. At dawn, the captain awoke to find the horizon burning faintly with light, though no sun had risen. It was aglow beneath the waves, golden and steady, as if the ocean floor itself had been set aflame. The crew leaned over the rails, hearts racing, for they sensed the glow was not a warning, but a calling. The ship drifted closer, and the water cleared until they could see vast shapes beneath the surface. Golden towers, arches, and pillars stretched far into the abyss, a city built not of stone but of light. The captain whispered it was Atlantis, or perhaps its reflection, preserved in flame at the bottom of the sea. The sailors held their breath as the ship descended, and not sinking, but carried downward on a spiral of currents. The water did not crush them, nor did the air vanish, for the sigil on the mast glowed brighter in protection, They entered the city through gates of coral flame, guarded not by warriors, but by silence profound. The streets were empty, yet alive, as though the light itself remembered every step once taken there. The sailors felt watched, not in suspicion, but in welcome, as though the city itself knew their names. They walked through corridors of glowing arches, hearing faint echoes of laughter, song, and prayer. Each sound faded quickly, but lingered in the heart, like the memory of a place once loved and lost. The captain paused at a great plaza, where a fountain of liquid light poured without ceasing. He reached to touch it, and visions unfolded, Atlanteans gathering, living, and worshipping the sea. They offered gifts of shells, pearls, and flame, always in reverence, never in greed or conquest. The vision shifted, showing a moment when the city sank, not in punishment, but in chosen surrender. The Atlanteans entrusted their flame to the sea, preserving their memory in a throne of eternal fire. The sailors wept, for they saw no ruin, only sacrifice made for the sake of harmony with the deep. Then, from the plaza, rose a song, not sung by voices, but carried by the current, old and unbroken. The sailors closed their eyes, letting the song move through them, filling them with strength and calm. They realized the city was not gone, only waiting, suspended in flame, until hearts were ready to listen. The captain bowed, and the sailors followed, offering silent gratitude to the guardians of the flame. As they did, the fountain rose higher, glowing brighter, and a path of golden light appeared ahead. The ship lifted once more, carried along the path that streamed upward toward the surface world. They rose through columns of fire and foam, breaking the waves beneath a sky now bright with dawn. Behind them, Atlantis faded from view, yet its presence lingered, etched forever into their souls. The captain spoke softly that the throne was not merely a seat of power, but a covenant of memory. Every trial brought them closer, not to dominion, but to unity with the eternal truth of the sea. The sailors nodded, each understanding that they no longer sought glory, but a bond everlasting. And as they set their eyes on the horizon, a new glow shimmered, brighter than all they had seen. It pulsed like a beacon, as if the true flame of Poseidon awaited them beyond the edge of the world. The horizon shimmered with a strange brilliance, not of sun or moon, but of flame rising from the sea itself. The sailors leaned forward, shielding their eyes, as the light grew taller, shaping into pillars of fire. It was not wild or consuming, but ordered, flowing upward like the roots of the ocean reaching for the stars. The captain spoke softly, saying this was the passage of flames, the gate to Poseidon's eternal domain. The ship slowed, and the waves fell silent, as if the entire sea bowed in reverence to the rising fire. The sailors felt no heat, only a profound warmth, like the embrace of the sea when it welcomes the lost. The ship glided between the pillars, and the fire bent, forming arches that crowned their path forward. Each arch pulsed with memory, and as they passed, the sailors saw visions flicker within the flames. One saw the day he first set sail, leaving behind home, his mother's face glowing in farewell. Another saw a storm survived, his fear turned into strength, his prayer answered by the whisper of waves. Each flame revealed not pain, but truth, moments that shaped them into more than men of the sea. The captain placed his hand upon the wheel, and the ship itself seemed to steer with its own will. The sigil on the mast burned brighter, resonating with the arches as though the vessel was alive. The sailors realized the ship was no mere wood and sail, but a companion chosen by the throne itself. As the arches continued, the visions shifted, showing not past, but glimpses of what could yet come. One sailor saw himself teaching his son to read the stars, another guiding lost ships to safety. The visions were not promises, but possibilities, paths born from the choices they might yet make. The sailors stood in awe, for they understood the sea was not merely memory, but also destiny. Then the final arch rose, taller than all the rest, crowned with a flame that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship slowed, and the fire parted, revealing a vast expanse of calm, glassy water ahead. The sailors gasped, for upon the still surface stood a single throne, forged of flame and current. It rose tall, elegant, unburning, yet alive, each curve shaped by tides, each spark carrying eternity. The captain dropped to one knee, though no voice commanded it, only the pull of reverence within. The sailors followed, kneeling in silence, their reflections bowing with them in the mirrored sea. The throne pulsed once, and the water rippled outward, carrying a sound like a chorus of waves. It was not words, but meaning, clear and deep, a call that spoke to the essence of every soul. "You are close," the sea seemed to say. "But to claim truth, you must release what you hold most dear." The sailors felt their hearts tremble, for they knew the throne demanded sacrifice, but not of blood. It was not their lives, but their anchors, the fears, regrets, and chains they still carried within. One by one, they closed their eyes, whispering silently, offering pieces of themselves to the sea. A man released guilt for a brother lost. Another let go of longing for a home long gone. The captain offered his pride, the weight of command he carried like stone upon his shoulders. As each offering was made, the flame of the throne grew brighter, its light reaching into the sky. The sea itself seemed to sing, waves rising in harmony, not in destruction, but in jubilation. The sailors opened their eyes to find themselves lighter, freer, their hearts beating in unison. The throne pulsed again, welcoming, but did not yet speak, as if waiting for the final test. The captain rose, his gaze fixed upon the flame, knowing the journey was nearing its greatest truth. And beyond the throne, faint but certain, another glow stirred, as though the sea still held secrets. The sailors stood ready, their hearts steady, for they knew the trials of flame were far from over. The sea lay quiet, as though holding its breath, waiting for the final chapter of the sailors' long journey. The throne of flame shimmered before them, steady and eternal, its glow untouched by tide or time. The captain stood firm, his hand resting on the wheel. Yet his heart felt lighter than ever before. He knew the throne was not a crown to claim, but a truth to honor, a bond too vast for ownership. The sailors gathered around him, their faces calm, their eyes reflecting the light of the eternal flame. They had crossed storms, shadows, and mirrors, each trial stripping away fear and revealing their core. The sea whispered once more, not with command, but with an invitation, gentle as a tide on sand. "You have given all," the voice murmured, "and now you may receive what was never mine to keep." The throne pulsed, and from its fire rose a stream of light that arched across the sky like dawn. It did not burn nor consume, but wove itself into the sails, the mast, the wood, and the men. Each sailor felt it enter their hearts, not as power, but as presence, a living flame of belonging. The ship glowed like a beacon upon the waves, its course forever bound to the truth of the sea. The captain bowed his head, whispering thanks not for victory, but for the grace of understanding. The throne dimmed gently, its purpose fulfilled, though its essence remained, eternal and unbroken. The sailors knew they had not taken the flame of Poseidon. They had become part of it instead. The sea calmed, wide and endless, stretching ahead as if offering them a new beginning. Stars aligned above, forming a crown in the sky, a sign that their covenant was sealed forever. The sailors stood together, no longer seekers of glory, but keepers of the bond between man and sea. They turned the ship toward the horizon, carrying with them the flame, invisible yet eternal. The ocean carried them forward, each wave a reminder that they were never alone in their journey. The captain's voice rose steady, telling his men that the throne was not an end, but a guiding star. Their lives would not be marked by conquest, but by harmony, by carrying light where darkness lingered. The crew smiled, hearts steady, for they had found what no treasure could ever equal: belonging. As dawn broke, the sea shone golden, waves glistening as though lit from within by hidden fire. The ship sailed onward, sails aglow, leaving behind no wake, only ripples of eternal light. The throne faded into the horizon, yet its presence lingered in every drop of water and breath of wind. The journey had changed them, and through them, the world would carry a spark of Poseidon's flame. No storm could extinguish it, no shadow could bind it, for it lived within hearts that had been tested. The sea, vast and eternal, welcomed them not as wanderers, but as part of its endless song. And so the story closed, not with conquest, but with peace. Not with a crown, but with truth. For the flame of Poseidon was never a throne to sit upon, but a light to carry into eternity.